that God sees you. Daddy God sees you. And look, I'm just going to read it. You didn't probably all have your Bibles on your iPhone, which is very wonderful. But I'm old, so I have it still like this. But I'm young at heart. Yeah, I'm very young at heart. This is a good book, 1 John. Chapter 3. I'm thinking about this love message, and where do we find love? Where do we get it? How do we get it? It's awesome to hear we should love each other, and we should all be loving, and we should all be full of love. But where do we get it? We get it from Daddy. We get it from Papa. And my last 18 years of my life, together with the best team on the planet, we've just been bringing home kids, one by one. Just bringing them home. Finding kids that don't have anywhere to go and just bringing them home. And thousands of us are doing it now. We're just stopping for the one. Lily's doing it. Yeah. We're just stopping for the one. We're not trying to complicate it, not trying to make it weird. We just love the one in front of us. And if love really looks like something, then somebody's dying and they're hungry, then you don't just say, oh, would you like to pray this prayer with me? But you say, come home and live with me. So that's what we did. So we have a lot of houses now. And how? It says, how great is the love of the Father, that He has lavished on us, that we should be called the children of God. That is who we are. The reason the world doesn't know us is it didn't know Him. Dear friends, now we are the children of God. And what we will be has yet not been made known. But we know that when He appears, we shall see Him. We shall be like Him, and we shall see Him as He is. Everyone who has this hope in Him purifies himself just as He is pure. So the love of God comes from the love of the Father. I want to tell you the story about two women. Is that okay? They're women that challenged my life and taught me about love. And because of time, I'm just going to tell you where to find it in the book. If you look up John 13, you'll hear about Jesus talking about the full extent of His love. And what did He do? Do you remember what He did? He washed feet. Well, I was going to reach some people that didn't know anything about Jesus, and I've been there one time before to this village, and I brought a couple of Pale brothers with me, along with my kids. And so these Pale brothers are used to a different kind of life. When I go to their meetings, they like to, they pick you up in this huge, long, white limo, and I kind of hide because I work with poor, and I'm like, oh, sweet Jesus, don't let anyone take a picture. But that's their language of love. But so I wanted to invite them to my world. So when they came to my world, I said, okay, hop in our boat. And they jumped in our boat, and these guys are really pale. They turn red in the sun. And they were not used to what I was going to do. And I said, we're just going to go out. And I had a bunch of my kids in the boat, and we're just worshiping. And they said, where are we going? I said, don't worry. We'll know when we get there. They said, what do you mean? When I go to their thing, it's a big, slick brochure, and it's colorful and very, very nice. I appreciate nice. But we didn't even have a sticky yellow thing for them. We just said, we're going, and we'll know when we get there. Well, I read this book, and Jesus, showing the full extent of His love, He took off His outer garment, and He got low, and He put a towel around His waist. He poured water into a basin, and He saw the one in front of Him. Now, to get close enough to somebody to wash their feet, you have to get really low. Now, in your culture, it doesn't mean much, does it? I mean, most of you have taps. You just turn them on and you put your feet in there. But in our culture, it's very different. And so in the story, Jesus got really low and slow, and he saw the one in front of him. We need to see the person in front of us. Whether we're at a university, whether we're on Wall Street, whether we're walking down, whether we're in a mall, whether we're in a bank, wherever we are, we need to see the one in front of us. It's very simple. The gospel's not strange or complicated. It's just love manifest. We receive the love of Daddy God, and now we see the one in front of us. It's just see, opening up our eyes and seeing. And so I was telling my friends, amazing guys, very beautiful, anointed, famous preachers. I said, in our world, it's just a little different. We're just going to pray, we're going to worship, and when we feel like stopping the boat, we'll stop the boat, we'll get out. So I'm worshiping with my kids, and finally I tell the captain, stop, stop, stop. I think this is a good spot. And I jump out into the ocean. Well, these guys look at me like, what's going on? I said, oh, maybe they don't want to swim. So we got a dinghy and said, hop into the dinghy, and we went off to the shore. And I just brought a couple of my kids, and we're walking down. And these guys don't even know about what shoes to wear because their world is very different than ours. So they're trying to figure it out. Their shoes don't work. Not even Crocs work in black mud, you know? So we're just walking down, and we're up to our knees in black mud. And one of my boys said, Mom, we forgot the foreigners. They're way back there. I said, oh no, how loving am I, you know? Allah is supposed to be kumbaya, she's so sweet. Well, I wasn't so sweet, I forgot the pale dudes way in the back, and I'm really embarrassed, and my kids said, we gotta go back and get them. So we're tromping back up to our knees in this black hot mud. We get to our guys, our friends, and they're bright red. They're kind of Norwegian descent. They're bright red. They're kind of taking deep breaths. We don't have any water. We are just hot, and they're hotter. And so she said, just keep coming. And these guys looked at me and they said, just a minute. Just a minute. Where are we going? I said, we'll know when we get there. I said, how are we going to know? Where are the Christians? I said, we'll know when we get there. We've been before. There's going to be some believers. They were very interested. I think they were expecting a big meeting, you know, with flashing lights and smoke machines. But it's just us, a bunch of kids walking through the dirt, asking God to show us where to go. Now, you can try complicated and big and bigger still, or you can just get low and slow and see the one in front of you. How many billion people on this planet don't know him? Now, it's not about you doing bigger. It's about you going slower. It's about you seeing the one in front of you and caring about them. It's not about big things. Big things don't really excite me. What excites me, what really touches my heart is seeing love manifest and just asking God to carry that kind of love. And so we're tromping along and we're tromping along, and suddenly this little lady, you'll understand this, she's about this tall. She's from a different tribe. She's very short. She's got a piercing in her upper lip, and she's going, she's very excited because we got there. She was so excited, and she runs out, and she has this old cracked basin. It used to be red, now it's pink, and it's got a crack down the side, And she runs out right at me, bends down. She sees me, she looks me in the face, and she says, "Mama, can I wash your feet?" And I looked at my brothers and I said, "We're here." We're here. She showed us what love looked like. She carried that water to us, and she washed my feet, she washed my children's feet, she washed the foreigners' feet. She just had this incredible love, and it takes her hours and hours to walk one way just to get a basin of water. And so she gives us her treasure because she is a believer. You know, we've complicated the gospel. We don't know what it means. We don't know what it feels like to really be loved so much of the time. And just bigger things and flashier things, and God's just saying, "See what I see, and let me show you what I see." Here's another story of another lady. It's another day. I was very late. I'm usually late for everything because I'm relational, and I like to see people and I like to engage with them. So I'm always late. And I had a discipleship meeting, you know, where we have thousands of churches, and so obviously I know you're supposed to disciple, so I've got my group and I'm supposed to be there. But I was hanging out with one of my friends, and she's an old lady, you know, wrinkled up old lady, and we'd built her a house, and she was so excited because we're going to visit her house, and she's looking at me, and we're hugging each other, and I'm crying, and she's crying. Why? She said, I never dreamed I would live in such a palace. It's this little tiny house. It goes from here to here. But she's so excited because it's her palace. And she knows Daddy loves her, and she's no longer dying in the dirt. She's just a happy woman. And she's just radiating the love of God, and her neighbors find out, and so her neighbors sit down with us. You know, our life's really simple. It's very different from yours. She's sitting down next to the latrine, and we're just sharing stories, and the entire group, you know, it wasn't a big meeting. It was just neighbors not understanding why this lady, Tina, and I were friends. Because we look different. We're from different tribes. And they could tell, and so they're like, "Why are you friends with that lady? And why is she friends with you?" And they're talking back and forth, and I'm just like, we're close, we're buddies, we spend time together. And so all of them want to meet Jesus. It's about 8 of them. Very easy. They meet Jesus. By now, I'm super late. I'm so late that it's nuts. It's gotten to the point that I just have to kind of hide my watch. When I speak in Switzerland, they always give me a nice Swiss watch so I can be on time. So I don't know what you're going to do here, but so I'm going and I'm walking around, and I'm going slowly, and I'm talking to people in the village. I'm there every Monday. I speak a third of my life around the world, but I'm there 2/3 of the time. And I'm always just hanging out with the poor who are so rich. And so I'm walking down, and suddenly, as I'm walking down, this little old lady catches my eye. I see her. And for a moment, I thought, I'm so late. I'm so late. But I see this lady, and she's sitting there with her back against this hut. And she's just sitting there, and she can't see me. She can't see me, but I can see her. And some of you probably feel like that lady. There's so many people around you, maybe your teachers, your parents, your friends. They're super busy, they're late, they're texting, they're Facebooking, they're doing something. They can't spend time to stop for you because they're in such a hurry to get to the next thing. And often that is our challenge in life. We just want to get to the next thing. We want to do the next meeting. We want to get to the next final or the graduation, whatever it is. It's always the next thing. Whereas Daddy God is present with you. Jesus is present with you. He sees you. There's nobody here whose mother would give birth to them and say they don't have a name or a face. Nobody. Some of you feel faceless and nameless, but it's not true. Once we took in a little guy whose face was blown off with a landmine, and he still had a name. And in my opinion, he still had a face. Even though his eyes were gone, his nose was blown off, half his mouth was blown off, he still had a name and he still had a face. All of you have a name. Why don't you just listen to God? Daddy, say your name. He wants you to hear him say your name. He wants you to hear him say your name. That's why he sent Jesus. So that you and him could be connected forever. So that you could live with him forever, because he wants you. And he sees you. And he has time for you. He has enough time for you to be slowing down. He's omnipotent. He's omnipresent. He's not concerned about time. He slows down long enough to see you for as long as you'll stop. So here's this lady, and she's just sitting against this hut, and she's blind, very blind, white eyes, and I'm going to speak to her, and I speak to her in her dialect, and I say, "Shinana Dipani, what is your name?" And her answer haunted me. She said back to me, "I have no name." I thought, how can a person, a human being created in the image of God, created in the very image of God, have no name? Do any of you in this tent have no name? All of you know your name. Let Daddy God speak your name to you. Let him speak your name, lovingly call you by name. He knows your name, and he knows your frame. So here's this little mama. And I asked her again, I thought maybe my language skills in this dialect are just not working. So I tried another dialect. And I asked her again, and then I asked her in Portuguese. I asked her in 3 different languages, what is your name? She answered the same every time. I have no name. The lady just sitting, imagine this. I want you to get this, because this is your life in California so much of the time. The lady sitting just about there from her said to me, she's blind and she has no name. And I'm thinking, why didn't you give her a name? You know, if you're sitting here near this woman who has no name, and you've been sitting there day in and day out because your hut's right close to her hut, how could you not connect? God is calling us to connect, to be present with one another, to connect together, to see one another like he sees us. So much of the time we just walk around blind, and we don't even know that Daddy calls us by name. We don't know how much He loves us. We don't know how much Jesus loves us. And so, this first thing I did, I didn't try to like say, come on, let's pray the sinner's prayer, you know. I said, well, could I give you a name? And the name that I gave my new friend was, you exist. You are. You are. And she starts chuckling. She's only got like 3 teeth. And the lady who before never even talked to her, I said, would you speak out her name? So she starts speaking her name. The lady's so happy. She's got a name. She's got a name. Yes! It's so beautiful. See, you are just called to stop for somebody, to be present with them, to see them, to see them, to see them. Not just to jabber on or do something bigger, but to be present with another human being. It doesn't matter what their philosophy is or where they're from or their race or their creed. It's about seeing them and letting the love of God that Daddy poured into you just pour out onto your neighbor. It's that simple. So she had a name, and I was really happy, and I said, you know, I'd like to just pray for your eyes. And she's chuckling. And I'm holding her. I don't, you know, I love the power. I think power is awesome, and the big boys line them up and knock them down. Line them up and knock them down. And I said to God one time, years ago, I said, could I just be a hugger? And he said, yes. And oh God, that's just so much more me. You know, just go, I like to hug people. So by now, I am so late for my discipleship meeting. I mean, I just forgot about it. I figure if some of them lead over 2,000 churches, they should be able to do it themselves. You know, I figure they'll be fine, and they'll just be great. So I'm sitting there with my new friend in the dirt, holding her, rocking her in my arms, and just with no book table and no badges. Jesus just took her eyes and turned them brown. It's so awesome. I'm crying. I am crying. Some people think, yeah, they'd be like, yeah, I have to